So good afternoon to everyone. It's good afternoon for me. Good morning to you, I think. It's really an honor to be here with this Canadian scientific community, and to have this diversity of people in the room is really exciting. And it's a great honor for us. So thank you for making the time. I'm Tanya Brody Rudolph. I'm an international ocean lawyer. I am based in Cape Town, and I'm a research fellow at the Center for Sustainability Transitions at Stellenbosch University, and the co-lead of the Towards IPOS initiative with Françoise Gael, who unfortunately couldn't be joining us today because she's in Monaco for a meeting. But Françoise and I lead, and Maxime is in charge of the project, and Lucas is our project manager as well. So we have a wonderful team, and we're excited to share what we've been doing and what IPOS is all about. So maybe I can begin, if you can start the presentation, Luca, so we can move on to these are the three sections in our presentation today, and then we can move on to the next slide. Thank you. Great. So just wanted to give you a sense of the genesis of the IPOS and where it arose and how it came to be. So before we go into a deep dive on what IPOS is, Françoise and I spoke at the end of 2020 during COVID. And we connected around this common idea that we both had, completely separately from one another on opposite ends of the world, but the same concept that the ocean is a commons and that it needs to be understood and managed as a global entity as a whole, because it is an interconnected system. And we had both been working on this from different perspectives, Françoise from a scientific perspective and me more from a systems and policy perspective. And since our first presentation, which was in Brest in February 2022 in France, we've had a series of events around the world at a high level, formal events that we presented at COP27. We had a high level ministerial meeting at COP28. Maxime was just in Antigua for the UN SIDS for Ocean event, where we held another high level ministerial meeting. And we've also Lucas and Françoise just came back from Costa Rica from the Immersed in Change event, where we were doing some stakeholder engagement with small-scale fisheries. So we've had a very rich tapestry of events and outreach over the past 2 years to bring us to where we are today. If we can to the next. Thank you. So just to place us in context for this conversation, something we're all very familiar with, and that is how the ocean is deteriorating. And I think this slide, which demonstrates the lack of progress towards SDG 14 currently for 2024, is quite telling. We are very far from achieving this target, and we have 5 years left to do so, to turn this map from orange and red to green. So there is a sense of blue hope around the blue agenda that is emerging with the BBNJ, with the plastics treaty under negotiation, and with the name's just gone off my head. Sorry. The sense of blue hope is present. But one of the issues that we've discovered and through our work, and I'll take you through that in a moment, is the science policy interface. And a primary enabler for the science policy interface is to accelerate action towards an improved science policy interface. And part of the studies that we've done have shown how this knowledge is available across different assessments, but that it remains siloed, it remains dispersed and fragmented. It's not actionable for policymakers. It's not written in a language that's easily understandable or accessible for them. It's not demand-driven, so it's not responding to priority topics, and it's not sufficiently inclusive. So if we can move on to the next slide. Thank you. So the first study that we did was at the request of the European Union, and they asked us to conduct a feasibility study to understand the landscape of global ocean knowledge. So we analyzed all the primary global environmental assessments at a global scale against 77 criteria to establish just how effectively our knowledge base is being used and how it's distributed. And what we found was that it's dispersed and that this impacts credibility. Well, credibility is strong, but it impacts legitimacy in the sense that the knowledge that's provided and generated is not sufficiently inclusive of different knowledge types, of different systems that interact in the complex ocean system. And also, it's not sufficiently salient or relevant to policymakers because it doesn't respond to their priority issues. It's generic knowledge on the state of the ocean, but it doesn't help them action the policies that they actually need to implement to move the ocean sustainability needle. So if we can go on to the next slide, please. We did another assessment, a benchmark of regional organizations at across 5 ocean basins. And we had, I think, 86 case studies that we looked at to understand how regional organizations are working in the ocean sustainability sphere. And we had a look at how they're reporting or on the SDG targets, on the 7 different SDG targets, and also on whether they were working in a participatory, inclusive manner. And the results were quite interesting. This is just a very high-level summary of the final results, but you can see that these across these basins, these were the institutions that were performing the best. Okay, so next slide, please. So in essence, what we've identified through the studies that we've done and the benchmarking, and in addition to all the workshops we've done, multiple stakeholder engagement, and many interviews with scientists and policymakers over the past few years, has been that there is a need at the science policy interface for something that is much more actionable, something that brings knowledge to decision makers that responds to their priority needs of issues that they're actually confronting in the moment, not just a big book that's on their desk that doesn't actually help them very much. So there really is this niche between linking the knowledge and the science to the policy. And the way we envisage this working is through a demand-driven process. Something that you'd all be familiar with is ICES and PICES, I imagine. So something along these lines, but at a global scale for all countries in the world, where political leaders, ministers, and high-level representatives could request knowledge from the IPOS, and IPOS would respond to this knowledge with a tailor-made regional response, leveraging hybrid multi-stakeholder working groups that are distributed across the world. And we intend to establish a grid of experts around the world on each of the global target platforms that we want to support, which is SDG 14 and the Global Biodiversity Framework, Target 3, 30 by 30. So we are going to establish this network of experts around the world. So when a request comes in from a particular country, we can respond to it with global experts, but also with local experts that can bring context from the local conditions. And we are going to open this up to 3 types of knowledge options at the moment. This is under discussion and very much part of a conversation that we're having. So we welcome your feedback and your thoughts on this. We're in the process of co-constructing the IPOS. So we'd very much like to hear your thoughts on the 3 options that we're envisaging, which are on the next slide. If we could move on. Thank you. So the first kind of service that we're imagining is an ocean action request, which is what I've described, where a country would submit a request for knowledge. IPOS would then provide a synthesized and inclusive response with actionable insights that can be implemented from this hybrid working group that I've explained. And we're imagining this would take us up to a year, so much faster than the big process cycles are taking presently, up to 5 to 7 years. And then in parallel to that, we're wanting to offer a secondary, much more rapid, quick ocean connect, which will be a turnaround time of a week or 2, where a country urgently needs some synthesized, verified information on ocean topics. So one can imagine, for example, preparing for a COP for a small country that doesn't have a scientific team that can prepare their negotiators, or where there is a need for a fast response for some particular issue that's happening. And that would also be, our target audience there would also be countries and intergovernmental organizations. And just want to mention intergovernmental organizations are also the target audience for the first service, because obviously with transboundary issues, at times there will be a transboundary need and a regional need for an ocean response. And then the third service is the Ocean Sentinel, which is to facilitate the ability of civil society and the scientific community, as well as the private sector, to raise issues that they believe should be prioritized by governments. So this allows a kind of whistleblowing function, if you like, for civil society and the private sector, and for the scientific community itself to raise issues that are important to states. And then IPOS will anonymize those responses and encourage the states that are involved to solicit the responses of the either one or two, the services of one or two, so that the issue can be attended to. And this report would be made every 6 months. The Ocean Sentinel report will be available every 6 months. If we could move on to the next slide. Thank you. So these are the core values that form part of the DNA of towards IPOS and have been part of the IPOS initiative from the beginning. And the one we've discussed already, which is to be demand-driven, to answer key questions from policymakers. And secondly, to be action-oriented, to be really useful and pragmatic. We're facing a time of such urgency for ocean action and for policy responses to be adaptive and fast. So we intend to offer tools that are ready to use, actionable roadmaps that are intuitive and accessible for policymakers. We obviously would like to do this from a systemic perspective, to take a holistic approach to the complex ocean, and also to include the different sciences that contribute to the system, as well as cultural perspectives. And we'd like to do this in an inclusive way, including the voices of local and indigenous communities, but also other marginalized groups, to ensure that we have representative voices for the ocean. And then lastly, the next slide, just to affirm the way that we're presenting the IPOS now. Initially, we were perceived as being the IPCC of the ocean, and that has shifted somewhat after 2 years of benchmarking and of engagement and stakeholder outreach. We've realized that really what is needed is this piece between knowledge and action, or between science and policy, and that is a gateway that connects knowledge to decisions. And we've also shifted towards talking about towards an IPOS rather than the IPOS, because the IPOS doesn't yet exist. We're in the co-production phase. And I'm going to hand over to Maxime now to take you through our approach to building the IPOS.
Thank you very much, Tanya. If you can go to the next slide. So as Tanya just said, we are not created yet. We are really co-designing it, and what we want to do, the core objective for the coming months, is that to present the concept of the IPOS at UNOX 3, so June 2025 in Nice. And there we want to present really who will you be, what will we do, how we're going to work, how we're going to be funded, and what will be the governance. This will be the presentation. Then, because we want to be hosted under a UN structure, will be created a few weeks or a few months later, depending on what's the hosting structure that we have. Towards UNOC, what are we going to do? We can go to the next slide. So on this, that's how do we do this? So we have this small team as an Ocean Sustainability Foundation built by Françoise and Tanya. And now we are a bigger, stronger team since we have the official support from the European Commission. So since March 2024, a few months ago, the European Commission is supporting us for nearly €1 million. And we have a set of partners in a consortium which is really working on 3 things: finalizing the feasibility study that Tanya presented, then writing what we call the terms of reference, is really what is our structures, deliverables, how do we work, what is our secretariat function, etc. And then making this IPOS live. What is its branding? How do we engage with people? How do we organize events, etc. So we are doing with a range of European stakeholders, and now we want to reach at the global scale. We can go to the next slide. And with this consortium, we are doing 5 things in parallel to build like the blueprint of the IPOS. On the top left, you can see a lot of benchmarks, literature reviews, analysis, making sure that we understand what already exists. We want to complement what already exists, to understand what are the best practices, to make sure we have a mission, a vision, and a way of working that are efficient and make sense for the ocean, for people living out of the ocean. Second thing, we do a lot of stakeholder outreach. We need to have a coalition of states pushing for the IPOS. We need to have a global community of scientists and knowledge holders also supporting us, because we'll be working together. And finally, we also need like a UN body which is happy to host us, because we want to be legitimate and we want to stay on the long run. So 3 things, 3 kind of stakeholders we mainly involved, and then we work also with civil society, with private sector, etc. Third thing, because we don't want to do it together just by yourself, we are starting tomorrow, actually, a consultation, a global consultation with plenty of stakeholders from all across the globe, to make sure that after these 2 or 3 years of trying to see where we want to stay, now we want to fine-tune with everyone, so we make sure we have the good vision. We also organize plenty of events and workshops. As you've seen, we'll be at the UN General Assembly, we'll be at the different COPs late year, and we are doing things really at a high level, but also like some small workshops with different groups, so we can coordinate with plenty of people. And the last thing we do is pilot project. We don't want only to think about the concept, we want to test it in real life. So we are testing several ideas, several topics to see if our actually concept makes sense. 2 examples. We are working now on the deep sea mining or deep sea exploitation, to make sure that with the French president and the international community, and we'll be starting soon, hopefully, in Costa Rica, which is a co-host of the UNOC, a project more linked to how do we are very inclusive in terms of knowledge, and how do we work with the indigenous and local knowledge holders. 5 kind of things, and we can go to the next slide. So as I said, if we want to be permanent, and if we want to be a legitimate solution, we see the UN as a natural home. So we have benchmarked different options, and we think that the IOC would be the ideal place. We have been talking with the teams. They show a great interest. It will be a long process, but IOC UNESCO seems to be a potential home for us. We also have like a strong connection with UNEP, that for now is not completely official, but they seem very interested by supporting the project. Something else we do is we don't want to overlap. We want to connect the dots. We want to amplify the amazing work which is done by IPCC, IPBS, World Ocean Assessment. So we are also starting to build bridges with them, as well as the IRP or Ocean Panel. For example, we did some. We are doing a workshop with the Ocean Panel Sherpas in 2 weeks. Next slide. So this slide and the second one is to show who are our support, political support here, scientific support next, and Luca will take the lead from the scientific support. So we have already some powerful ones. UNOC is following us, and the IPOS might be one of the main deliverables of UNOC. We have, as you've seen, official and financial support from the European Commission. We have also official and diplomatical support from French Republic. Thank you. That is kind of why we're here. And also, we got 4 weeks ago the official support from the president of China, saying that IPOS is something that we need to investigate. Several other countries that showed interest: Morocco, Palau, Monaco, Spain, and the Pacific Ocean Commissioner. And lastly, ongoing discussion with a wide range of countries, USA, the big ones, but also small seeds like Mauritius and Seychelles. And so the idea is that we have a coalition of states with us in nearly a bit less than 12 months. Now we go to the scientists.
Okay, so we can go to the next slide, and we go for the last ones. So as Maxime said, we have this support from the political community, but one thing that is also very important for us is the support from the scientific community. And we are very lucky to have a support from 23 institutions that are officially supporting the project, really like the institutional level. So it's not only experts within those institutions, it's really like the kind of the political level that is officially supporting our project. And it's very important for us in terms of legitimacy and also to make sure that we have a strong and unified voice of the scientific community behind this project. And so you can see all the members on the screen. As you can see, there's no yet Canadian members, but hopefully with this meeting, it's the first step towards having some of you joining the team. And so yeah, the idea for this coalition of scientific institutions supporting IPOS, so the support can go through different ways. It can be a simple letter of intent, signing and saying you want to join the coalition of scientific institutions, or we can also do MOUs, memorandum of understanding, that we have been doing with some of these universities. But yeah, the key ideas, the key contribution that we want for this scientific institutions, it's for facilitating the exchange we have with the scientific community and facilitating the participation of experts within these institutions to either the drafting of the terms of reference, as Maxime mentioned earlier. We will do a consultation process that we will launch tomorrow, and the coalition of scientific institutions would be officially asked to comment on the draft terms of reference of the IPOS. Then also the contribution to the pilot projects, including the one on deep sea mining, deep sea mining that Maxime mentioned earlier. We will be launching in a few days/weeks in an international working group to accompany our scientific community on this specific pilot project. And of course, we would be very happy to have experts from all of these institutions, and maybe including yours. And yeah, the key thing that we want to say is like it's very important for us to have this strong unified voice of the scientific community behind us. And we can move on to the next slide. Just a few words regarding the temporary governance that we have for now for the Towards IPOS initiative. So we really have a core team that Maxime mentioned earlier, which is basically the consortium that has been created as part of the EU Commission from the project. We currently have an advisory board of high-level experts that are giving us advices and perspectives on our main decisions. We have then like knowledge community that is consulted on the main topics, which the coalition of scientific institutions is part of. And we are currently trying to create a knowledge committee that will be composed not only of scientific experts, but also of other knowledge holders, NGOs, institutions, youth organizations, indigenous people and local communities. And then you have more broadly all the IPOS ecosystem that is being informed and still part of this whole community. And we can move on to the next slide for the next steps. So as you can see, the coalition will be started in a few days. The consultation will be started in a few days, and it will last for a few months. The objective is that we are able to present the term of reference in November of 2024. And as you can see also on the screen, plenty of events that are coming. In September, we hope to be at the UN General Assembly. Then there is the COP Climate and COP Biodiversity. And we still have in mind this big step that the UN Ocean Conference would be in Nice in 2025. And this was the last slide. We can go on to the next one, like just for your question, if you have any question regarding what we presented, does it make sense to you? Do you think our project or vision is right? Do you think an IPOS is needed? Are you aware of any institutions that could be interesting for us to work with? And first of all, thank you very much, every one of you, for being here today. Yeah, we hope that we've been able to raise some interest among you, and we are here to respond any question you may have. Thank you very much. So is there any question? Yeah, I see some hands that are raised, right? Do you want to go first?
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. And it's interesting to see the progress with the IPOS concept. I was in some meetings last year with the people in the Ocean CAN, the Ocean Knowledge Action Network, and Anna Zivian and Leopoldo were presenting this initial idea, and they were talking about the IPCC of the ocean. So it's interesting to see how that's now evolved. One question I had, and what we discussed last time when we were meeting, was this idea of multi-stakeholderism and inequality, where there might be some big players and some less powerful players, and then they're not on an equal footing, so the dialogue could break down. And a related issue is, you talked about the importance of including Indigenous communities, Indigenous perspectives, but that doesn't seem to jive with the quick turnaround idea of, being able to develop policy very quickly and rapidly turn it back. Whereas consulting with local communities can take a lot of time and to develop the relationship and the trust. So have you thought about those issues?
Tanya, you want to take it?
Sure. Yes. Thanks, Dwight. It's nice to hear that you were at an Ocean CAN meeting with Anna and Leopoldo and have been following the progress. So thank you. Thank you for your question. I think it's such a valuable question, and really at the heart of the challenges we face with this global ocean commons that we have, because it is a challenge to deal with power asymmetries and the differences between different stakeholders and around the table, and the ability to raise their voice and to feel heard and to include their perspectives. It's something that we are taking very, very seriously in the IPOS. It's one of our core principles, and we're implementing that in every committee and every body that we create. We're implementing equity principles and really being careful about that. But the actual knowledge production process itself is something that we are starting to work on now with our small-scale fisheries project in Costa Rica, and it's going to be very interesting. It's a subset of IPLC, so we're fully aware that it's just a small representation, but we have good bridges through Leopoldo's connections and through Anna's connections and Ocean CAN's connections with a degree of trust that's already been established. And it's such an important issue. When we were in Barcelona last year, we had a meeting also with a whole range of different stakeholders, including small-scale fishers, and the trust issue took time to establish. So I think your point around the quick response, the quick connect, is very valid, and a very valuable point that you've raised, and not something that we've actually really spoken about. So thank you for that. I think what we will have to acknowledge in the quick turnaround response is that will be less co-produced than the longer 1 year response, which would give us the time to build the relationships. What we are planning on doing is having a core team, a full-time core team of people for the ocean, for the quick connect. So that will be a team ready to respond, and on that team there will be equity, and it will be a fair distribution of people on that team that will be responding to that. So there will be some of the principles of power asymmetry integrated into the structure of the team that are responding. But you're right, of course, within 2 weeks, there is no way you're going to go and co-produce knowledge with the community, and so it's a very valid point, and I think it's something we need to qualify in our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see Anne is the other raise as well.
Hi, everybody. First off, I just want to say thank you and express some gratitude here, because I think this is urgently needed, and I love the focus. I have two ideas, but first off, I just wanted to share some thoughts on that last point. As someone who has worked with coastal communities, particularly Indigenous communities, for 20 years now, spending the time to build trust, I think I can share that from my experience and what I'm hearing, a lot of nations, rights holders, that is, not stakeholders, but rights holders, do want to make change at a global level fast. They see the urgency. And I love, Tanya, how you framed it immediately as a common goal. My sense is that you can circumnavigate the obvious issue of the time it takes to work at the speed of trust by tapping into networks and trusted relationships. The networks that already have spent years building the trust and exist, because I think many of the leaders that I work with see the need to work now and fast. So don't let that stop you. That's really just speaking from the conversations that are happening here on the west coast of British Columbia, and there are networks that you can tap into. But now to some ideas. It seems to me that you guys are very well poised to tap into do you guys know about the Pew Fellows Marine Program? I'm a Pew Fellow myself. It's a network internationally that really elevates voices across the globe, including the global south, which it seems like you all know about. This is a network of already connected researchers whose vision, essentially shared vision in the ocean, is linking knowledge to action and change. So do you guys know about the Pew Fellows Marine Program? You should tap in there and come to one of our annual meetings. And that could be a source of people that could work on these kinds of projects, because these are experts globally.
Wonderful.
So that was just one little idea. And then just along the lines of Dwight's idea and what I was just sharing, there are well-established networks of Indigenous communities. Here's just one example in BC, Coastal First Nations. I work with a lot of these nations. They have a strong governance board. You could talk with them and say, are you interested? Is this something that would interest you? And there are others like this. And if they should be seen as rights holders, they are rights holders. And that's, I think, how you bring in some of the Indigenous voice, but leadership that's already well created. They have a decision-making process. In this case, this spans more than 3/4 of Canada's Pacific coast. So anyhow, these are just some ideas I'm offering. I do think that this is a great idea. Congratulations, and I'm here to help. I can talk to the upper ups at Simon Fraser University.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Anne. Those are
no problem.
Wonderful reflections, and really, really useful things to remember, that one can tap into these networks, and that they do exist and they have done the work. And if one approaches it with honor and respect and integrity, and you actually show up and do what you say, then I think that can fast track things. And it's good to hear that these communities have strong leadership that wants to make a difference urgently at a global scale, because that is what's needed. So we would love those contacts. Thank you for those contacts, and we will be in touch with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this. I see Nishan as is raised.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation too. I have a couple questions. One is, what do you anticipate your engagement with universities looks like? Are you looking for participants in committees, or we have a School of Public Policy that it seems could be very interesting too. but the currency of researchers is things like identifying grants and that kind of thing. So if you have a plan for that, and the other thing is, are you affiliated or know about the JESDA conference in that happens in Geneva now annually? I can post the link to. Those are my two.
Thank you. Lucas, do you want to respond, or would you like me to?
Sure, I can take the first question regarding the relation with universities. Currently, the main aspects of the collaboration we envision with universities is really to make sure we can, by creating collaboration with universities, have access to as many expertise, as diverse as possible, and yeah, like on the different topics on which we are working. So including, as I mentioned earlier, like the drafting of what will IPOS be in 2025. So how will it work? What are the best practices from which we have to learn? And typically the examples you share with us are like typically what we want to do, like those examples of institutions or organizations that are working at the science policy interface that we can be influenced by, that we can work with. It's typically the kind of relation that we want from these exchanges with the universities, and also to help us go through the different pilot projects on which we are working in. Here, like on the, as we mentioned, the idea is to have international and interdisciplinary working groups to work on the different pilot projects. And thanks to the relation we might have with the universities and the one we have currently, it's really like identifying as fast as we can the right experts and the right scientists that could participate to those pilot projects. Maritime, you want to complete?
Yes. So this was in the kind of building phase of the IPOS. Then how do we see things on the running phase of the IPOS? And it's to complete what Anne, you were saying, that there is an urgency. We need to act now. And what's something the IPOS wants to complement is a timely issue that the IPCC, IPOS were facing. We had to wait 5, 6, 7 years to get something. And so policymakers don't have 7 years to wait, because usually they are out of power, and the ocean doesn't have 7 years to wait either. So the idea is to build a grid, a network of experts on nearly every topic or every SDGs in each country. So once we have a question, once we have a topic we want to address, we don't spend months looking for the good person who gets the knowledge, but we actually can activate the network in a few weeks or in a few weeks. And that's what we are going to do in the coming years. And so let's say in Canada, we have one question from policymakers on fisheries, and we know that actually there are X, Y, and Z who can be incorporated into the project right away. That's part of the idea.
Tanya, do you want to complement?
No, I think that's fine. I think that the one question that was sort of subtle that was included in your comment was around grants and funding. And I'm sure it's a question that's on everyone's mind is how do we intend to fund the science? And this is something that we're working with, and we're in the process of designing how exactly we will set up the funding structure. And with IPOS, we're imagining there'll be different streams because it's a global entity, but we will be responding to certain questions from states that may not be able to make contributions. So we will have a combination of different types of funding, and we're working on the principles of that and the rules for that, and also looking at what kind of philanthropy we will allow and accept, and also alternative mechanisms for funding science, new models for funding science, because we really believe that science should be funded, because policy depends on science. The world actually runs on the basis of science, and scientists should be paid. So we're working on with some financial experts as well on thinking out of the box for a new way of funding science as well. So a little bit of everything. the moment, but we'd welcome your thoughts on that too.
Thank you
Thanks
very
so
much. I think Jan has his hand raised as well.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. I will have just one or two comments and one question. I would like to thank also all the Canadian participants that it's really great to see from the Atlantic coast all the way to the Pacific coast, have the representatives here. You know, as a CNRS representative in Canada, I just wanted to say that there is a really great dynamics in research collaboration between France and Canada. And together with Géraldine, with Stéphanie in Montreal, Géraldine in Vancouver, with Vianney, we have organized several meetings over the past year within the scientific communities. And it really showed that there is a lot of connections, and I'm convinced that these connections can be put into the work for towards IPOS. And because these connections for me are really the fundamental sort of bricks for constructing these kind of think tanks or whatever, communities for advising the policymakers. Because the scientific communities, there is a trust and confidence among them. And I think on the France-Canada level, it has been really worked out very well. And we have a very nice, examples of these collaborations among different universities and communities in France and in Canada. I wanted also to say that there is now an ongoing bilateral discussion between France and Canada, and the ocean and pole discipline or thematic is one of the strategic thematics, and we had just meeting 2 weeks ago between the French Ministry of Research and Foreign Affairs and the equivalents in Canada and the scientific communities to define what are the strategic orientations, possible strategic orientations for the research being done between France and Canada. And I really appreciate also the comment that, we need to find the different funding schemes for supporting the research, and more of the possibilities we have, the better it is, and especially in the actual geopolitical context where everybody talks about science, but not necessarily about the funding of the science. So I think there is a really good occasion for the France and Canada to put this into the work, and I'll be really happy. And on this, on behalf of CNRS, if we can sort of help to make these connections. My question is, because the towards IPOS has now European funding, is there any sort of chance or opportunity to take advantage of Canada being the associated member for the Horizon Europe, knowing that it's the Pillar 2 associated membership? But I just was wondering whether there is an opportunity to take advantage of that.
Thanks, Jan. Yes, the funding opportunities are open and under discussion for IPOS. Just the European, the initial seed funding from the European Union was just to start the terms of reference, which is what we're doing now. It's a co-construction process that we're running to have this wide stakeholder outreach and to build something that represents global consensus. So the next phase of the IPOS funding opportunities are completely open, and it would be wonderful to actually access what the Horizon Fund, as you say, that second stream, and something that we need to investigate. We haven't spoken about that yet, Maxime, but something.
Yeah, we haven't. Yes, we are open to everything. As you might have seen on the first slide, the biggest funding is from the Commission, but to start, we needed to go with private sector, so it's private foundation who have been funding the team so far. The end goal is that the main part will come from public money, but we are open to everything as we are in the kind of the rush of this 12-month sprint towards UNOC. But anything, I'd be very happy, Ian, to discuss with you further on this Horizon Europe idea. Definitely.
Yes.
Just to add one quick words, we have been presenting the Towards IPOS initiative to several Canadian ministries a few weeks ago, and it was actually very well received from their side, and hopefully it was the first step of a concrete collaboration in the next few months.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate your words, Jan, of thanking the Canadian institutions for being here and looking forward to collaboration.
Viridiana.
Hi. So I just wanted to ask, because in Canada we have what we call communities of practice that are kind of also similar. So we try to bring together not only experts, but even anyone who has a stake or expertise in a particular field. And recently it was brought to our attention that there's a similar thing in Europe called CICS, knowledge innovation communities. And I was wondering if your knowledge community that you plan on setting up is one of those, because it sounds like there is quite a bit of funding to be had around those. I'll just put the link in the chat.
Thank you.
But yeah, I was wondering if it was related to that at all.
No, not yet. But that sounds like something we should definitely explore. We were just designing our own knowledge committee, which we hope to be really groundbreaking, to bring people that are not normally in the same room together to make decisions together. So this sounds really great. So we'll take a note of this. Thank you.
That's why we love this kind of meetings, that we learn so much, and maybe there's so many things we can leverage on. So thank you so much.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much.
I don't know if there is any other comment, question. If we can stay 30 minutes more, if someone wants, we can go and do something else if everyone is done. I see maybe Vianney, you want to add something, but Vianney,
yes. If there is no question, I just wanted to thank for the organization, Viridiana and Geneviève, for the perfect organization of that. Maybe it will also bring new questions. So we started discussing to organize this webinar with my colleagues from the Institut France-Québec Maritime, and we told ourselves that it was said the emergency is very important. We cannot wait. So we told ourselves that it will be better to organize something for the world community. And we are very, very happy that so much Canadian institutions, so much Canadian universities are there today. I'm very happy and a bit proud about that.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much to all. Thank you, Tania and Maxime and Luca, obviously.
Thank you so much, Vianney, and thank you to everyone for making the time for this important conversation. And already I feel we have established a whole bunch of new bridges, which is incredible. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
very
so
much. And as mentioned, oh, sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
just first step, we hope definitely that there will be next ones. I think the presentation will be sent, and we'll be more than happy, especially Luca, to continue to engage and to see what could be done individually or as an institution altogether.
Yeah, thank you very much once again to the EFQM, to Vianney, to everyone for being here.
Yeah.
We're happy to introduce this concept, and hopefully it's the first step of a fruitful collaboration in the next month.
Yes. Wonderful.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night.